Great. And we'll get going, and we're recording. So thank you all for joining us. This is the December talk for Green Stitch, which is our eco-conscious craft initiative through Hera Gallery that meets every Saturday at 2 p.m. And through the winter, we will be doing it here on Zoom. So thank you all for joining. So before I start, I want to basically put a disclaimer when talking about recycling and waste. Often for me, even I find it gets really overwhelming. You hear statistics, you hear numbers about waste. And for me personally, I've thought, gosh, unless I get rid of my car and never buy plastic again and start stashing all my little bits of trash in a mason jar, like I see these no waste people do, then I won't make a difference. I'm one person. What difference can I really make? What impact can I really make? And I think the biggest thing that I want to emphasize today is that it's not about being perfect. It's not about being 100% waste free. We all still have to operate and exist in the 21st century. And unfortunately, a lot of our waste also comes with convenience. And so there are certain conveniences in life that many of us have to participate in basically to operate, in this society. However, it's like I said, it's not about being perfect. It's about being more mindful, being more connected to the items that we're using, that we're throwing out. And specifically to be mindful about what we've been trained to accept is normal. So we're trained to accept through the holidays, you wrap things in throwaway paper, and then the second it's done, you throw it out. I had just mentioned the Christmas tree was something that popped into my head, that it's tradition, it's normal to go cut a tree down, put it in your house for a month, and then throw it out, which also feels wasteful and really, detrimental to the environment. And so things like that, like I said, I want to reiterate that it's not about, you're never going to create waste again in your life, but to have a more mindful, connected relationship with these things and, traditions and habits. So I think, yeah, that mindfulness aspect is kind of the big thing I want to focus on. And right now, obviously, through COVID, all of us are for the most part stuck at home. And through the holidays, many of us aren't traveling. We're not doing as much holiday shopping out in stores. And I think this is actually such a perfect time for us to kind of focus inward more, focus on handmade, homemade, recycling, upcycling, and not just for the environmental factor, but for the fact that it's really heartwarming to be able to sit and make something, either for a loved one or with a loved one. I love the idea that so many of these things can be done, with kids or family members, and just in general, that's kind of what the holidays, I think, is about, is spending time together and being creative, especially, during this COVID era while we're all at home. Um, and I'll also say pretty much everything that I talk about today, ideas, craft ideas, projects, almost everything you can find online, and then some. The ideas for sustainable holiday, no waste holidays are endless. And just coming up with the info for this talk, I've found so many really unique, cool things. And so to not overwhelm everyone with, 8 hours of ideas, I'll only do, a half hour, 45 minutes. But after this, everyone can go online, and just the possibilities are really endless. And so I think, honestly, the internet and YouTube is such a great way to really boost creativity and ideas. So I implore everyone to go out and keep searching for, unique ways to reuse things. So I will talk just a little bit about waste and trash during the holiday season. There's a statistic that I just keep going to over and over, which is that between Thanksgiving and New Year's, we produce 25% more trash during that time than the rest of the year. Now, 25% doesn't sound that much, but it equates to over a million extra tons per week. So you think within the 7, 8, 9 weeks that you would call a holiday season, that's millions of tons of extra trash on top of the 4 or 5 tons we're producing weekly. This is just in America. I don't know the statistics for outside of America, but I can imagine Americans are probably not great with it. I hope other countries have better, but anyhow, so that's like a really scary statistic on how much waste we produce during that time period. Most of this, there is miscellaneous trash caused, by holiday parties, disposable food containers, plates, cups, things like that. But the vast, vast majority of the waste that's caused during this year is from packaging and wrapping. And when I say packaging, it's not just necessarily the wrapping paper, but you think of things like during the holiday season, 900 million packages are shipped worldwide. So that's bubble wrap, that's packing peanuts, that's, the tape that goes onto cardboard is plastic. And so then suddenly is no longer recyclable unless people are breaking things down. So that adds up so quickly. We think of just the things in our immediate vicinity, the wrapping paper and ribbon, but there's so much that accounts for this. I will focus right away just on the gift wrap stuff, because that is something that I think is the most easily kind of manageable for people at home. It's something that you can do honestly using pretty much everything that you would already have at your house, getting together ideas and examples and everything for this talk. I made a note for myself that I refused to go and buy anything because I wanted it to all be things that people had at home. It can literally just be, a piece of paper and scissors and a marker, or brown paper bags from your kitchen. And I have a bunch of examples that I'll go through, but the idea is that everything can be sourced from home. You're not spending any money. And so all in all, it's just really beneficial. And so wrapping paper is the first thing I'll sort of talk about. Most wrapping paper is actually not recyclable. All of that really shiny, slippery paper that we get has plastic film printed into it. And so 90% of our traditional holiday papers are not recyclable. And then you get into the crazy ones that are filled with glitter or foil or the holographic shiny ones. And those are even worse. All of that confetti and glitter is basically tiny bits of plastic that then, even after that paper theoretically decomposes, the glitter and the confetti can basically run through waterways into the ocean. It can be digested into, aquatic animals and marine life. And so you think it's even just going to the landfill when really, your wrapping paper from 10 years ago might be inside a fish or a whale now. And so it's amazing how horrible that industrial or commercial wrapping paper really is. And then the other thing I found really interesting was that on average, Americans spend about $10 to $12 billion a year on throwaway wrapping material, which seems insane to me. And so that alone, I think is amazing, because I'm like, we have this opportunity to save packaging, save materials, and save us a tremendous amount of money. Even the little, I've gone into craft stores and the little glitter bows, will run you $4 or $5. Just the ribbon will run you a couple of dollars. And all of a sudden you've spent $50 or $60 on stuff that in two weeks you're going to throw out. And so for the wrapping paper, especially, I had said this before, the big thing is utilize what you already have at home. Brown paper bags from packages or grocery shopping, and even paper bags from your own holiday shopping, buying gifts for other people. You can take those brown bags, you can paint them, you can stamp them. And I actually have a really fun example of one. This is just grocery bags from Belmont's, but I've cut snowflakes and glued like paper snowflakes all over the brown bag. I put some white paint, some gel pen, and that's something, like I said, it could just be marker, cut paper, paint. A really fun thing that I used to do as kids, which this is a cool activity for kids. My potato's a little scary, but is potato stamping, where you cut a little shape into a potato. And for kids, that's a really easy way. You know, you could do stars or trees or menorahs or any sort of little menorah would be hard to carve. Maybe a dreidel you could carve. But any sort of fun little shape, hearts, squares, that's a really fun interactive way to decorate paper as well. And it's really fun for kids. You know, you can also use things like old road maps or travel maps is a really neat way I've seen to wrap gifts. Colored or printed fabric, or even pretty pillowcases tied with a ribbon or something. I've seen people basically gift in a gift. So if they gave pillowcases to somebody or any sort of fabric thing, really pretty scarves, you can basically wrap up a gift in a pretty scarf and have that also be part of the gift. I believe I said, yeah, newspapers or magazines, and then also old books that have a broken spine or damaged or stained, because those are things that most of the time, you know, Salvation Army or Savers or things won't take damaged goods. And so with that kind of thing, it's hard to regift. It's hard, you don't want to just throw it out. And so that's a really neat way to be able to repackage some of that. I'm going to share my screen just for a really quick moment and just show a couple of examples that I had. Here, let me see. Oh. And, okay, there we go. Oh, I don't know why my screen's not sharing. All right, well, I'll do that after. Sorry, guys. I'll show those examples at the end. That's okay. But it's pictures of, yeah, road maps with, you know, with twine that's wrapped around newspaper, wrapped around gifts. And I have a couple that I can actually also just hold up and share that I did myself. And again, like I said, with all stuff just from my house, I had shown that wrapping paper. This was one I did with just literally just newsprint that I had extra. It was like in the back of my car. I took white paint to it. And this was one that I had used those potato stamps. So you can see my little star shapes that I stamped onto it. And then the things wrapped around it are what I'll actually talk about next, which is ribbon and tags and the decorations, and how to also have things that are reusable or upcyclable for that.
Could I ask a question?
Absolutely.
So after if you've painted like you just showed,
For this.
Is that
Oh. Shoot,
Did you hear my question?
Say it one more. I didn't. I'm sorry. Say it one more time. You broke off for a minute.
If you have painted as you just showed us, would the newsprint be recyclable after you've got the paint on it?
So that is interesting. Some certain, mostly no, which is an issue. And then also with any, how do I say this? Anything that you put tape on becomes no longer recyclable. The thing with that I basically stress is rather than going and buying new material, you are still theoretically creating waste, but you're creating it out of something that you already had.
Sure.
So rather than having two wasteful things, it's only one.
Yeah.
There are also, I do believe there are certain things that can be recycled, and I would look farther into that, certain markers or pen or things like that, because I know for certain you can recycle paper that has been written on. So I would look into what paints specifically can be recycled.
Probably watercolor.
Watercolor, absolutely, yeah. Anything that has any water-based thing, I believe. I'd say if it's an oil-based or vinyl-based paint, you're probably running into some issues there.
Okay.
But I'm not 100% sure on acrylic paint, actually. So I would look into that further. And actually any of the cut paper, like I said, I had shown this one, 100% is. And with that, again, the only thing you have to look into is to make sure that the glue you're using isn't like an oil or vinyl based glue or something like that. but any marker or anything, pen, all of that, as far as I'm sure, is all recyclable. But again, I would double check when you start to use things. But that's, I'd say over and over. I mean, many times I'm actually using things that aren't recyclable, but it's just upcycling. So it's using things a second or third time. And so when I talk even about, I'll be going into like ribbons and bows and decorations and things, inevitably we're going to end up, you know, being gifted things with items like that on it. And so even if you're saving them and reusing them, you are still using something that will be thrown out. But it's that idea of you're not buying more and adding into that waste, basically. So like I said, you know, it's never 100% foolproof where, you know, there's literally no waste created. But to minimize and be more mindful. And actually, I love that you asked that question, because even for me, it poses, you know, all of these other things that I think very often we don't even think of. You know, even brown paper bags very often have glue down the seams, where I've actually even read that they have issues with that, with recycling. And I've heard you're supposed to cut the glue strips off your brown paper bags, which I don't know, there's endless research that can be done on all of that. But yeah, and I'll go into more for the ribbons and bows and the decoration and stuff. That's something too, where I always say, you know, if you receive gifts, save your ribbons, save your bows, save your tags. That alone, it seems like such a small addition to the trash. You know, it's just, especially that kind of the shiny, the ribbon. But that causes a huge waste. I read a thing, it's something like 38,000 miles of ribbon, something around like that. You could wrap it around the earth twice and tie a bow with the amount of ribbon that gets thrown out. And so with that too, I would say, think of things that can be upcycled, recycled, that you have around your house. And with that too, it's interesting because I mean, there are things, this was something that I had around my house that I'm reusing, but of course it's contradictory to what I've said because it has foil in it. And so this was something I'm using to wrap my gifts this year, but I'm saving it and bringing it back home. I'm making sure it doesn't get thrown out. So there's always a level of mindfulness with what gets chosen, but in my head, at least, I'm not going out and buying, you know, some new plastic ribbon and tossing that. But a really good thing that is completely recyclable and can decompose, recycled cooking or garden twine. I see very often. It looks beautiful, and you can stick all sorts of different things into it. Evergreen. I've seen cinnamon sticks, candy canes, which then again, you're running into some plastic packaging on candy. So that's something to be mindful of. But one thing I had seen actually that our president Uli had done recently was dehydrating or roasting orange and citrus slices. And they look beautiful. They make your whole house smell wonderful, and they will make your gifts smell wonderful, along with the evergreen. And that's something that I think is such a fun project, and can, you know, be tied on as a decoration. Uli, I see you unmuting, if you wanted to say something.
And that's really pretty stuff, anise.
Oh,
Like-
star anise, yeah. That's, I didn't even think of that. That's so true. And actually, and I even think of, I didn't even put this in my little list here. I remember as a kid taking oranges and you stick the cloves into them. Even something like that. Like I said, you know, get creative. I think there's so many just things available to us that very often, you know, have been used in other traditions that we just don't like. I think of that, you know, I put out for the birds. I've seen you put it outside or you hang it on your Christmas tree. But even that is something that could totally be taken into gift wrapping. And I had also seen, you know, the dehydrated orange slices tied to little gifts and things like that. So that's a really cool activity, and then cute way to kind of dress them up without you know, these big plastic bows and curled ribbon. another little side thing that I had actually just tried doing is you can literally make your own little curly cues just with a pencil and some cut paper. And literally just twirling, you know, you tightly roll your paper, colored paper, construction paper. I had like old scrapbooking paper that I had just left over. And so even that can be rolled into really cute little curly cues that can get attached to your gift. And again, it's all completely recyclable. And then with that also comes tags. And so again, I mean, it's the same spiel over and over, making your own rather than going out and buying these plastic tags that also have metal often. They have glitter, they have foil. And those too, again, you know, you write your name, you tie them onto your present and they get thrown away after that one use. And so this, I mean, was literally just the scrapbook paper. I folded in half with a piece of like double-sided tape, but I could write everything out, tie that on. Obviously you can always write, you know, write your names right directly onto the gift. I've also seen old business cards or artist cards used where they're cut into fun shapes. You can also use watercolor paper or something like that and really paint and create your own. And then my personal favorite that I saw online, which is a little crazy, but I think it's worth a shot, was tiny sugar cookies with a little hole poked in, and that it was a little cookie tied on the end, you know, with frosting or something on the top. And I thought that that was my personal favorite for unique tag ideas. And the final thing as far as gift giving and packaging and things like that, which I want to talk about, and this was something actually Donna and Willie and I, we mentioned at the beginning, was cards, the Christmas cards. And again, I like the statistics just because, I mean, it's almost too big of a number to grasp, but over 2 billion plastic disposable holiday cards are bought every year in the United States. And I know personally, as much as I cherish getting a card from somebody, within, you know, a day or two, that plastic card doesn't mean much. The interaction with a person, the thought is what I remember, but that actual physical card doesn't hold much weight. And most of the time those cards get thrown out. And that's my biggest thing I say all the time is hand make them. I think handmade cards, you know, forget the gifts, forget the money, forget everything, to hand make a card and give that to somebody at the holidays, I think is such a great way to say, I was thinking about you. I literally spent an hour creating something to give you a little bit of happiness. And I personally know that handmade cards that I've been given over the years, I've saved, and I have, I think actually, Uli, you made me one. I can think off the top of my head that has, it's a little celestial. I don't even know what it was from. It was from it was like 2 years ago, but I have it stuck in one of my binders. And so things like that, and especially as creatives or artists, I think it's such a great use of our talent and time. And then I always say, if you can't make them, if you're not creatively inclined or don't have the time, e-cards are a really great thing where, especially now, you can actually record audio messages or video messages. And that also feels more personal than just a plastic card that you can buy. And with that can also, the e-card can also go in line with what I would talk about next a little bit, which is, you know, the buying in person or buying items versus gifting experiences or gifting electronically, basically. And through COVID, this is such an interesting time where many of us aren't actually shopping in stores or buying physical things. A lot of us are buying online, which I had mentioned, and this is a whole other realm that I won't get into, but online shipping and packaging is at an all-time high, of course, with COVID, with buying online, Amazon. And so that alone, I wanted to touch on that. If you are sending and shipping things personally, you know, if you're not, ordering it straight from Amazon, but that you are packaging something up. Little things like they have the water dissolvable packing peanuts or crushed brown paper rather than bubble wrap. Just being mindful of what you're packaging things with. And again, you can even get creative where wrap something fragile in a pretty scarf, or if you bought, your niece a new sweater, package something else in that sweater so that it has some cushion, or things that basically won't just sit around in a landfill. Being more mindful of what you're packaging things up in. But then I will go quickly just into gifts. Most of what I wanted to talk about was that, handmade packing material, wrapping material. But I wanted to touch a little bit just on creating less waste with gifting and with food during the holidays too. And so with gifts especially, one of the big things I had just mentioned obviously is gifting experiences. So things like, and of course a lot of this is post-COVID, but a lot of it is actually still really possible now. Post-COVID, tickets to a concert, a show, or movies, things like that, or a trip or travel experience. But for now, gifting favors, so things like work around the house. One that I gifted this year was 24 hours free of kids, 24 hours babysitting. I'm taking my partner's niece, and we bought a dinner for his sister and brother-in-law, and so they can be kid-free for 24 hours. And so little things like that, really can be appreciated. Oh, and one I wrote too, one commissioned artwork of their choosing, I think is a really sweet gift that people would enjoy. It can be home-baked cookies, breads, or jams, plants or a tree for their yard. It can also be things like subscriptions. So this is something really good while we're all stuck at home through the winter. So magazines, newspapers, Disney Plus. And then also, again, for getting outdoors and hopefully through COVID, but it may be post-COVID, outdoor subscriptions to things like the zoo or the aquarium. And the one I love that I thought of is annual parks pass. So the state parks or the national parks is a really neat gift that you could give someone, especially while we're trying to do this outdoor initiative, get outside, socially distant. I think that's a really neat waste-free gift that could be given. And then the other thing that I will kind of wrap up with is reducing the stigma of secondhand gifting or regifting. And I think often that is thought of along the lines of almost lazy gifting, where someone forgot to buy a gift and so they went and found something in their house, or had something they didn't like and so they just gave it away. But I have thought long and hard about regifting, and it's actually something I'm such a fan of. I think so often things get tossed aside or aren't loved and appreciated the way that they should. And that very often items that will be treasured and loved by somebody just end up sitting there because somebody's basically embarrassed to regift something they were given or something they've used. And again, this year, my partner was just given a guitar that his aunt found in the trash. It had a broken string, but it was a gorgeous guitar. And she's like, I thought you'd want this. He now has a project to fix it up. And this beautiful guitar that was literally sitting in the garbage is now given love. And so, yeah, I think not only does it remove the packaging around buying a new gift for somebody, but I think it's a really great way to give older items that need some love a new home. And that also kind of ties into mending, which is also this idea of, rather than buying something new and immediately throwing out a piece of clothing because it has a little hole or has a little stain, I invite you all to learn how to hand mend, spend an afternoon, rather than buying your child a new pair of blue jeans, spend the afternoon together learning how to, hand mend them, or even how to do, they have those iron-on patches that even for kids, I mean, they've got, dinosaurs and flowers and trains, all these cool designs. And so that can even be a fun way for kids to, like dress up basically, or create new clothing out of things that have been loved a little. And obviously with kids, you have them growing out of things, but especially with adults, now that we're keeping items for a very long period of time, you know, this fast fashion culture is such a thing where clothing is made somewhat poorly because they expect us to just throw it out after a season. And so just promoting, you know, putting your money into getting higher quality items, you know, looking at where your items come from is a whole other hour-long talk of where you're, you know, if the clothing that you're buying is you know, good labor and things like that. But along the lines of just well made and will last a long time, and then learning how to fix them and mend them rather than just throwing them out. And that in itself could be a really good gift, you know, if someone has a favorite sweater or a favorite pair of jeans, to say, I can actually fix this thing that you love so dearly rather than just go buy a new one. Yeah, and so that's pretty much everything. I don't want to like saturate everyone with too much information, but I wrote a really quick list of just some green like resolutions that people can consider going into the new year. And these are really simple, easy things that are year round. So not even at the holidays, but it's a good way to start being more mindful of the things around you and the ways that you're interacting with material. And so my really first basic easy one is learn how to recycle. Basic food or household items, make sure you're doing it correctly. So even that awesome question about, you know, is paint recyclable? I'd say due diligence, you know, do your research, figure out, you know, the things that you are recycling, make sure you're doing it correctly. Do you need to take tops off, things like that. And again, along with that, the reduce and reuse, you know, buying things with little or no packaging, or buying in bulk, which reduces excessive packaging in individual amounts. One of the things I had, one of the other resolutions I had written down is learning how to compost is a really good one that's really eco-friendly. Things that can be saved from food waste, as well as things like yard clippings, waste from your yard, or even leaves. People very often will clear the leaves out of their yard, and that's actually something we had touched on in November with the natural buffers, which that's a whole other talk. You can go and watch Kate McPherson's really excellent talk on natural buffers. But the leaves from our yard also can even be something that you recycle into a compost pile, which you know, literally can then be reused to grow your own food. It literally is, or you know, plants or whatever it may be. It's a really great you know, recycle system there. And then the final thing is, yeah, get outdoors, see the great outdoors. You know, put your money into the parks, into programs in the area that promote being outdoors, promote recycling, promote environmentalism. And yeah, just all in all, to be more mindful about the products and the way you are experiencing those items. And yeah, I think that's pretty much everything I wanted to talk about. I know we're gonna stay on, and the Green Stitch goes for another hour or so, and we can go into these different crafts and things like that. I didn't want to make this talk more than about half an hour, so I'm gonna stop recording. But we can keep hanging out. People can ask questions. And actually, before I stop recording, if there are any other questions. Yeah, Barbara.
Question, but I just want to share my mother recycled Christmas cards for many, many years. And she would make them into tags. Now, you know, these things take time. So, you know, if you don't have a lot of time, but she had plenty of time, but I still have some. Actually, I have quite a few, but she would cut out the part of the card she liked, and she would glue it onto, you know, just a piece of kind of cardstock, punch a little hole in it, add a string. And so you'd write, you know, who the present was for inside. Sometimes she even put, you know, with calligraphy, to and from inside the cards. But they came in all sizes, you know.
Oh,
But she would go, people would give her cards after Christmas and she would go through them and she knew exactly, you know, the kinds of images which she could use.
Yeah,
She
that's
loved,
lovely.
yeah.
Oh, that's so cool. No, and I love that too, because it even, I mean, I feel like it's you go through them and you even remember these different cards, you know, they have sentimental value too, because they are cards and images from people that that have sent you things. That's so great.
It's interesting that you are talking about handmade cards, because today in my mail, I received a handmade card from a cousin who lives in New York City. She's very artistic, and I hadn't seen her. It's really very collage oriented. It's just, I just love it. She sent me one a couple of months ago as well, because we haven't been in touch much. And she just wrote me this quick little note on this beautiful collage card of all different things she put together on this one little card. I'd love to show it to you. But I don't know if I can get on with a video now that I'm not.
I think I can ask, let's see.
Oh, okay, start my video.
Yeah.
I think she has to do
Okay.
it. Oh, there we go.
I would need to go downstairs and get it because it's
Oh, that's okay. Yeah, no worries.
is that okay?
Yeah,
And I'd be happy
absolutely.
to share it with you because it's so cool.
I would
Oh.
love that. Absolutely. Yeah.
I'll be right back.
No worries. That's excellent.
I want to just share one other thing. I think I told Sarah and Uli that in the Sunday Times, they've had, you know, these little, you know, how to recycle your newspaper, make different things. So I made this. This is like a snowflake that you can put on top of the gift, and it's just folded similar to the snowflake, except it's a little more 3D.
That's so perfect. Yeah, it literally, I mean, I adored the fact that just with paper or, you know, scissors or like a pen and paper, I don't know, there's just so many like opportunities and options and different projects that can be done. And actually I figured out, I don't know why my computer hadn't wanted to share earlier, but I can share this screen really quickly. I had some visuals of just ideas. So off the bat, I can show these were like what Uli had been mentioning, the dried citrus. I thought that was a really cute way too, where they had tied them as like a little garland. And then for packaging, oh yeah, so like for the stamping, I mean, there's all manner here. These are wooden ones, but it's that same idea. I mean, the potato I thought was such a great, again, reusable way. And this is again, yeah, with stamps and just the brown craft paper and some twine. See, here's some cut snowflakes that I thought were just, yeah, so pretty in such a neat way. And with those, like Barbara had shown, their 3D as like decoration toppers. I had just glued them with like Mod Podge onto this. And so this is almost more paper. But again, it's, you know, so many options for that. The road maps I had mentioned. And then, oh yeah, this was the cookie tags that I thought were just so cool. And I'm probably going to completely fail, but I am going to try and make cookie tags this year. So yeah, these were just, and yeah, just some different decoration ideas. You know, this was a good one with the books. Sponge stamps. Yeah, so those were, I think that was all of my examples. Yeah, with the twine and evergreen. I mean, and you can make them look just unbelievably beautiful with some real simple stuff. So here, I'll stop sharing and then, do you have your card?
I do.
Yes.
I don't know whether you can see it or not. It's a very old-fashioned little girl with her hands in a muff.
Oh, yeah.
You have to be old like me to know what a muff is. And she's written on the picture itself, she's written on Happy New Year and added it onto a red border. But she also outlined this rocking chair here with a pen so that it, it popped a little. And she extended the card because it wasn't long enough. So she has this other piece like coming out. So it's very asymmetrical,
I love
which
that.
I noticed from the last one. It was totally asymmetrical. Her lines aren't even or straight, which I also liked about it. It made them just more noticeable for not being straight. And then she decorated the back as well
Oh,
with another lovely little picture of a garden. And then, from us to you on the back, and wrote the most beautiful little message. She's been in Brooklyn in a small apartment all these months, and her husband was working at home too. So they were really cooped up. If you wanted,
isolated. Yeah.
they don't have she couldn't even go out and walk on the sidewalk at times because the sidewalks, you couldn't stay 6 feet away
Yeah.
from other people on the sidewalk.
It's
But one
so
of her
beautiful.
beautiful comments, which only added to the wonderful, beautiful card, was, there have been moments we can't believe are even possible taking place before our eyes. And then the delightful moments, often based on something as simple as searching around the kitchen shelves for something to cook up as a treat and finding a stash of popcorn kernels. And I just thought, it sounds just like her. And I was so happy to receive this card today.
That's so lovely.
And
No, I think
it's right in keeping with what you're talking about, because it's all recycled materials.
yeah, that's so
So-
perfect. And I love what she wrote too, because it really is. I think I wanted to do this talk too, because I think so many of us are stuck at home. I was just talking with one of my gallery sitters that everyone feels like they're in limbo and almost waiting for something. It's been such an unusual just a year that none of us have ever been through anything like this before. And little, you call it little victories, or the small things, or very simple things you start to really cherish and realize are kind of what matters. And so, yeah, I think, I reiterated all of these things. I love the idea that people can be at home with their kids or with their family, or doing it with friends via Zoom. That it's even what we're doing right now. It's opened up opportunities for us to be more mindful about this kind of stuff. And yeah, I think that that's really beautiful. So
Well, I wanted to say something to your idea of mending.
yeah.
I really, that so much spoke to me. Last year, I had a friend who had a really disintegrated favorite big sweater, and it was a big Gap sweater. As you say, like not even anything super special in terms of material value, but to her it was special. And it was really falling apart. So I ended up mending it for her. And it was so much work. But I did visible mending, because I always feel like if I take the time to mend, there should be a documentation.
Absolutely.
Really a lot to give, like as a gift, like if you have a favorite something, not just for kids but also for adults, because I think a lot of people have like a favorite sweater that got moth eaten, or they ripped on something but they still love the sweater. So I think that is actually a beautiful gift to give to somebody, because they can choose what is precious to them, and you can give this labor of love to them. So thank you. I already know my gift for who I know wants to get something like this, and it's a beautiful idea.
Excellent. Yeah, I totally agree with that. I think you're so right with that. If you're going to mend something, I think it should be visible. I think it is a little bit like this visual story of a piece, and I think it's actually, I mean, it's becoming like trendy now, these like visual mended things. And I think it is sort of a nod to this upcycled, recycled, eco-friendly movement that I think has started to happen more and more. So it's heartwarming to see that people are being more mindful. And I think, and I said at the very beginning, we're all so trained, trained into what is normal, you know, conditioned to just go along with a lot of these things like fast fashion, you know, and because of convenience or because of it's just how everybody does it, you know, we don't think too much about this kind of thing. And so, yeah, like I said, it's not about being perfect, but being more mindful of little parts of your life where you can start to upcycle or reuse or create less waste. So yeah, so I'll stop recording.